Hello everybody, Raven Knight, and today have a special treat for you. Because we reached the 9,000 sub goal, I'm doing something that I promised to do. I'm doing the top 10 secrets you never knew about Raven. These are just 10 things that I've probably never mentioned or told anybody on YouTube about. Only people that are close to me or people who have known me for a while know about these things, and I thought that they'd be fun to share with you guys. They aren't things that are going to reveal my secret identity or anything like that. They're nothing that crazy, but they are things that I think are either really cool, really embarrassing, or really strange that y'all probably never knew. So let's just have some fun with it, guys, and dive right into number 10. Number 10, Raven chased a stone stalker in college. That takes me back. So, yeah, okay, so it was like my third year in college, and I was named a residential advisor. And what a residential advisor does is their job is they're kind of the leader of their own dorm or section of the living space, and our job was kind of to be not police, but we were supposed to keep an eye and make sure that everybody living in our dorm was following the rules and living safely, and we had to make sure that everything was taken care of as was needed. Well, I was the biggest and tallest guy in my area, and that meant that whenever there was a physical problem, like someone was getting too aggressive or there was an animal that got loose, you know, they called me. And so one day I'm talking with some of my group, some of my friends from school, and all of a sudden I get a call, and they say there's a creepy guy hanging out outside of the dorm. So I go down to go check it out, and I see this dude. He just smells like he is high on something. He smells like he has been doing something, and he's just standing by. I say standing, he was more teetering by his car. He looked so messed up, and I just asked the guy, what is he doing there? And he starts babbling something. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I said, dude, are you okay? Like, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, he starts running. He just starts running. He books it as fast as he can. And I think the dude's in trouble. I think he's freaking out. So I chase after him. And as soon as I get close, he suddenly pulls a knife. The dude pulls a knife. And the first thing I do is I'm like, whoa, this escalated quickly. And he just starts screaming something incoherently. And then eventually, luckily, a police officer happened to be driving by, one of the campus police, and they helped handle it from there. But it was one of the weirdest things that had ever happened while I was an RA. And there were lots of weird things that happened while I was an RA. My brother helped me put this list together, so maybe he put one in here too, but we'll see. But anyway, that's number 10. Let's move on. Number 9. Raven scared off a bear. Yes. Okay, so this actually happened because I used to work at a camp called Camp McCall in South Carolina, and while I was there, I worked as a counselor in training. And what that means is that I helped monitor the kids, I helped organize events, I helped basically just, sort of act as security. I get that a lot. But one thing that we have this rule at camp is you can't have snacks or drinks in the cabins because it attracts the local wildlife, including black bears, which live in South Carolina's mountains. And sure enough, one of the kids apparently snuck crackers or something into his cabin, because we get a call on the walkie at about, I think, 3 or 4 in the morning that a bear had been sighted under cabin 3. And since me and my buddy Wamberger, we all had nicknames, all the staffers had nicknames. Me and my buddy Wamberger were in cabin 4, so we were called to go check it out because we were closest. And I'm thinking, we're about to go deal with a bear. Is this going to be okay? And Wimberger goes, nah, it's all good. They're more scared of us than we are of them. Like, genuinely, if you just act big and tough, they usually run away. So we head down to cabin 3, and sure enough, there was this big old black bear just crawling out from underneath the cabin. And I'm terrified. I'm thinking, if this thing gets aggressive, we're dead. We don't have any weapons. But Wamberger just suddenly starts yelling like, ah! And like jumping up and down trying to scare the bear. And sure enough, this bear suddenly gets skittish, and so I join Whammer. I'm like, we're screaming at this bear, chasing it, and this bear books it. This bear starts running, and then no sooner does it get away from cabin 3 than we hear barking, and the camp dogs are now after it. This bear is a big chicken. It's 3 times the size of these dogs, but it doesn't want anything to do with us. So, it wasn't just me, but helped scare off a bear. So, yeah, that's number 9. Number 8. Raven fell out of a bunk bed and didn't wake up. I was a little kid. I must have been about 4 or 5 years old, maybe 6. But I was a little kid, and this was back when I was going to camp. That same camp I mentioned before, as a camper. Like, I was just a little kid. And now my parents were with us at the time because my dad was there helping with construction. He was he owned his own concrete construction company, and he was there to help do some work on the driveway into camp. So that allowed me and the family to stay there for a week while he was getting that work done. Well, I was sleeping on the top bunk one night, and I don't remember this. I was not awake for it, but suddenly I wake up on the floor. And my parents asked me, "Did you sleep well?" And I'm like, "Why am I on the floor?" And my mom explained, "Last night, you rolled out of bed and fell on the floor with a loud crash, which woke the rest of us up. But you were still asleep. You know, like you did not wake up." What an absolute champion I was, even as a kid. I did not wake up. I don't remember this. I genuinely don't remember falling out of bed, but I do remember waking up on the floor going, huh? In fact, this incident was so funny that when I told Hannah about it, she drew a little comic, which I will show here. Yep, pretty crazy. All right, moving on. Number 7. Raven once ran an archery range. On top of being a lover of swords and medieval weaponry, I've always been an avid archer. When I was a little kid, my dad taught me how to shoot with a recurve bow. Got really good at it. Once I got older, I got a more powerful recurve bow. Tried my hand at compound bow shooting. It's very fun. And at my church, we had a kids club that happens every summer, and I was invited to open an archery range for the kids. And it was a lot of fun. The kids loved shooting bows and arrows, and they got excited anytime they got to go up and shoot. Even if they missed, they were always excited just to be able to hold a bow and arrow. The problem I had, though, was teaching these kids archery safety, because most of the time they weren't thinking about safety. They were just thinking about, I want to shoot something, and that could turn into a problem, especially if I'm explaining the rules and one of them decides to shoot an arrow and it nearly hits me, that kind of thing. So, but it was a lot of fun. And I also went on to teach archery at the middle school that I would go on to teach later. I ran the archery club, which was fun. Had some great kids there, so it was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that. So yeah, I ran my own archery range. It was great. Moving on. Number 6. The first time Raven shot at clay pigeons with a shotgun, he hit 25 out of 30. So my brother was a Boy Scout. I was too, but I didn't last as long as my brother because I had other things on my mind and on my life that kept me away from doing more Boy Scout stuff. My brother went on to become an Eagle Scout. That's his thing. Now my brother had to get his shotgun merit badge, and part of getting the shotgun merit badge is that you go out to a gun range and you actually shoot at clay pigeons. Now what happens is you go, if you've never done this before, you're given a shotgun, you stand at a range, and they launch these orange clay discs into the air each time you say pull. And when they go up into the air, you try to shoot them out of the sky. It's not so different from shooting a bird out of the sky. I had never held a shotgun before, and I was not there for the merit badge. I was there because my dad was there, my mom was out of town, and my brother was getting his merit badge. So I was just kind of tagging along for the ride. I think it was about maybe 13 or 14 years old. So my dad asked me, hey, I know it's not your thing. I know you're not here for the merit badge, but do you want to try shooting? And I said, cool, I've never shot a shotgun, but I'd love to. So I go up, and for each kid there, they shot 30 clay pigeons. Out of the 30, I hit 25. I had never held a shotgun before. It was the first time I'd even touched one. My dad, my brother, everyone there was amazed that I got so many out of 30. And no one else got that many, not even the adults. And I was stunned. I didn't expect myself to do that well. And my dad explained I must have inherited my grandfather's genes, because my grandfather was a marksman in World War II. He was actually so good with a rifle that he never went to combat. He stayed on Paris Island and taught soldiers how to use their guns, how to shoot. And so Dad said, you must have inherited that because you're quite the sharpshooter. And ever since, I've had a proficiency with guns, which is ironic because my brother is the one who really, really loves guns. I'm the one who really, really loves medieval weaponry. So it's really weird that I developed the skill that I do with a gun when it's never been my number one passion. I still do shoot with shotguns and rifles and pistols and stuff. I still shoot and I enjoy it, but it's really interesting that the first time I ever pick up a shotgun, I just did that well. True story. All right, let's move on. Number 5. Raven is related to the Knights of Malta on his father's side, but on his mother's side, he's related to Emperor Tiberius. Okay, my brother added this one, I'm sure. So, true story. You may know by now that on my father's side, we did an ancestry test and found out that my father has a lot of family in Malta, where the Knights of Malta, or the Hospitallers, were located. But when we found some genealogy records and some family history on my mother's side, we found out that my grandmother on my mother's side was part of a organization of royalty, like basically people who have blood from a royal line. And the further back we went on this family tree, we eventually went as far back as Emperor Tiberius, which is insane to be actually related to a Roman emperor. It is so crazy. I think that's one of the most interesting things about my family line. Now, I don't think this means a dang thing in terms of royalty privileges or anything like that. I just think it's fascinating that there's so much there that I never would have expected. Being a Knight of Malta, related to an Emperor of Rome, having a fascination with Asian culture, having some Scottish family. It's just, I have roots on every part of the world. It's nuts, but I thought that was really cool. My brother still goes on about it today, so it's a really cool fact about us. Thought we'd share it. So, moving on, next one. Number 4. Raven defeated a karate black belt in a match. Okay, so this requires some context. I did Muay Thai for a while, and I was competitive in mixed martial arts, and specifically Muay Thai. But when I moved, I couldn't go to the gym anymore. So I wanted to find another place to practice martial arts, and I found this karate dojo near where I lived, and I thought, I could try that. I haven't done karate in years. I did that when I was a little kid, but stopped. Maybe this will be a good place to go. So I go in, and the first thing that happens is this sensei, he says, okay, everyone pair up and let's start sparring. And I go, whoa, not a good idea, because I don't know any of the techniques. I don't remember anything from when I was a kid. So I go to the sensei and I go, hey, I remember like a few techniques, but I don't remember anything else. Do you think you could teach me some of the techniques first, or do you think you could, start me off small or something like that? Like, because all I've done is Muay Thai. And the minute he hears that, he goes, oh, you did Muay Thai? Oh, okay. Oh, hold on one second. Come here. And he calls over this dude. I don't remember his name, but he was a black belt. And he goes, yeah, you can spar with him. And I was like, oh, good Lord. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean bump me up. I meant teach me. So I tell this black belt, I'm like, hey man, can we just go easy on each other? I don't want to hurt you, and I'm sure you don't want to hurt me. If you go all out on me, I'm going to go all out on you, and I don't want to hurt anybody. Like, genuinely, I'm trained to bring people down to the mat. I'm trained to, fight to beat people up. Please, let's just keep this safe. He goes, no, man, it's all good. We can do this. So he starts coming at me. And he's good, no question. He's throwing some really focused kicks. He's keeping me at a distance. He's doing really well. And I'm trying my best not to lose it, I'm trying my best not to go all out. And sure enough, he throws this really fast punch at my face, and I react, and I turn, and I swing my elbow down on his arm, and the next thing I know, crack. Yeah, I broke it. And I was mortified. I didn't mean to, but he left himself wide open for that, and he was going way too hard. Oh man, I regret that. Not what I did to him. He asked for it, but the fact that I go to this dojo, and rather than help me out by getting me started, teaching me some techniques, stuff like that, they just say, oh no, you've had some experience. Okay, we're going to shove you with a black belt. Don't you realize what mixed martial arts and Muay Thai are? Don't you realize how dangerous they can be? Of course, I left that dojo and I never came back. And it's been a while since I've even looked at karate, so... Oh well, that was... C'est la vie, that's what that was. But yeah, I beat a karate black belt. Now, don't ask me to do it again. I don't want to do it again. I don't take pleasure in that kind of stuff. I'm not proud of it. But I told him, you gotta hold back. I don't know the techniques, and if you come at me with the intent to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. That's something my dad taught me when I was a kid. So, hey, there you go. Now you know that I did that. Number 3. When Raven was a teacher, he disarmed and took down a student armed with a weapon. Interesting phrasing there, huh? So yes, this is actually true. I was a teacher. I taught seniors in high school at a Title I school in the Midlands of South Carolina. And this school had a big problem with not only gangs, but just violence. And every now and then you'd get a kid who did something very, very violent. One day I was teaching a class, but my students were taking a test. And one day I just hear this shouting outside of my room. So I go outside to see what's going on. And sure enough, I see the assistant principal trying to talk down this kid who has grabbed, if you've ever seen those wet floor signs, those yellow wet floor signs, he has taken this wet floor sign, smashed it, and has picked up a sharp piece of it and using it like a knife. And he is just brandishing this at the assistant principal. And he's already cut the assistant principal, I can tell, because there's a little bit of blood on the assistant principal's hand from when he tried to grab the kid. And he's just screaming swear words and obscenities at the top of his lungs. I go over. I don't know this kid. He's not one of my students, but I'm like, what the heck are you doing, man? And he just tells us to leave him alone, and he's like, he's gonna gut us, that kind of thing. And I just tell him, put the thing down. Just put this thing down. And he starts swiping at me, and I'm just staying out of its range. Finally, he takes another swing. This time I don't get out of the way. I grab it and I hold it. Even though it's kind of cutting my hand, I'm holding it so that he can't pull back. So he's yanking it and he's trying to yank back. And then I just straight up kick him. I kick him as hard as I can in the chest, and he flies backward. And I've disarmed him. I now have the thing in my hand, and I kicked him to the ground. And that's when the assistant principal books it and takes after him and tackles him. And this kid is screaming and shouting. I don't know what his deal was. I don't, like I said, I don't know the kid. But all I know is I walked out and he's just brandishing this plastic knife. And you might be thinking, it's just plastic, is it that bad? Yeah, if you've ever seen those wet floor signs, they're pretty hard and they can be sharp if you bust it and just use a piece of it. So whatever the case, that was ridiculous. I was sure I'd lose my job. I didn't for that instance, but I did lose it later because I didn't get along with the administration. Me and the administration did not agree on a lot of things, but that's a different story for a different time. And if you've seen my video about my integrity, you know that story. But anyway, that's when I disarmed a kid with a weapon when I was a teacher. All right, next one. Number 2, Raven's first job was pouring concrete for his father. Yeah, I've had a lot of jobs. I've worked in a Wendy's fast food restaurant. I've worked as a teacher for a couple years. I worked as a tutor. I, of course, taught archery. I taught martial arts for a little while to people who were willing to learn. I've worked as a server. I've worked as a host. I've worked as an assistant manager in a restaurant. I've had a lot of jobs, but the very first job that I had right out of high school was I worked for my father. My dad ran a concrete contracting company, and that meant that he led a bunch of guys out to pour concrete for stuff like driveways, sidewalks, and street curbing. And that was my first job. He hired me on. It was $8 an hour. Not a lot, but it was something. And it was the first time I was actually making a paycheck. And I would wake up at like 5 in the morning every day, and my dad would make cereal for us, and then we'd hit the road. We'd drive out in his truck to the job site. He'd drop me off with one of his crews. Usually it's about 4 or 5 guys. And then he'd say, all right, you're going to do whatever they tell you to do. I will be back at lunchtime to pick you up. We'll have lunch, and then I'll drop you back off again. And that was kind of my day. The guys that I worked with were great guys. Goofy, very silly guys. My dad called them his yahoos because they were just so crazy. Most of them, I don't think, had very high IQs, but they were good workers and very nice people, and I enjoyed their company. And even though I was the boss's kid, you know, they didn't treat me any differently. They just asked questions about dad. They just kind of said, "Hey man, is your dad like this at home?" And I'm like, I mean, he's tough at home, but he has to be, you know, he deals with me and my brother. So there is that. But yeah, so that was my first job. It was a weird first job, but it got me physically active, so can't complain. The only problem I had with it was always hot. If you work this job in the summertime, it will be painful. Oh, it was awful. You cannot wear heavy clothing when you're doing this job because you will just sweat right through it. Sometimes some of the guys and I, we would just take off our shirts and wear them around our heads or wear them around our necks because we could not work that job while fully clothed. Sometimes it was crazy. All right, so that is number 2. Moving on, last one, number 1. The reason Raven chose his name, Raven, is because of his last name. Yes, many people have asked me why I chose the name Raven, because some people pointed out, aren't there other YouTubers with that name? I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are other YouTubers with that name. But the reason I chose Raven as my name, why I chose the Raven Knight, is because my actual IRL last name translates to Raven in English. So, and I always thought that was cool. In fact, I discovered our family crest has a raven on it, and our family even has its own Bible verse that we have as our family motto, which says, "Consider the ravens, they do not work or plow or sow, but God still provides everything they need." It's really cool to know that I didn't just choose Raven as my name because it was edgy or cool or awesome. It was because my name actually means Raven. So, really cool stuff there. Okay, guys, these aren't super big, crazy, world-breaking truths about me or anything. And some of you may have already known, or I mentioned them in passing when I was doing a stream. But now you know some 10 secrets about Raven. If I can think of 10 other secrets, I will share them in another video, maybe when we hit another milestone. I hope you guys enjoyed them. If you have any questions about them, feel free to ask in the comments. If you have any clarification points in the comments, let me know. Again, would love to answer them. Leave a like on the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already so we can reach the 10,000 milestone. We're almost at 10,000 subs, guys. And I will see you in my next video. Take care.